In section 2.3, when interpreting data, you have to be careful that you don't assume things. So in this first example, you can assume that line AD is a straight line. I can also assume that angle AHB is adjacent to angle BHJ. Things that you cannot assume would be that angle BHJ is a right angle, or that segment FH is congruent to segment HB. Because of the definition of perpendicular lines, if you have a diagram like this over here, you can assume that because there is a right angle mark, that the lines are perpendicular. Moving on to the equality properties, we have two properties that we're going to talk about today. And the first one is the reflexive property. And when you're talking about segments, segment AB is congruent to segment AB. And this will make more sense as we get into the properties. With angle measures, it's the same thing. Angle B is congruent to angle B. And I think of it as your two muscles. When you reflect, both sides need to be the same, or you're going to look awfully goofy. The transitive property is if segment AB is equal or is congruent to segment CD, and segment CD is congruent to segment EF, then we can say that segment AB is congruent to segment EF, because CD is the same for both of them. So if we think about this, if AB is 10 and that's congruent to CD, that means CD is 10. And then if CD is congruent to EF, that means that EF is also 10. Therefore, AB is congruent to EF. We can do the same thing with angle measures. We would say if angle A is congruent to angle B, and angle C is congruent to angle B, then angle A is congruent to angle C. Now take some time to match this statement with the property that it illustrates. So if I am matching, I am going to say if segment JK is congruent to KL and segment KL is congruent to segment MN, then JK is congruent to MN. That would be the transitive property. Angle W is congruent to angle W is the reflexive property. And angle RS is congruent to RS is the reflexive property. And if angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, then angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. That would be the transitive property. Now, if we flip to the back side, I would like to do one example to help you get started on your homework. Number 1, can you assume that angle QPN, let's highlight that, QPN is congruent to NPS? And the answer would be no. I can't assume that they're congruent because there are no congruency marks. If not, what information would make that true? Well, to make this true, you would have to mark that they are both congruent, or they'd have to have an angle. So we could say congruency marks. Or you could have an angle measure that says that they're both 30 degrees.